They told you your flights that day. Were you going to America? We have no idea what was next. It was, I don't know how it is right now, an amazing program for refugees. That life experience opened me to my destiny.
Welcome back, my amazing people. See, now I cannot copy you anymore.
Please be you.
Okay. Welcome back to I Got an Accent, So What podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And for those who don't know, I'm just a little bit younger. I don't have an accent at all. And that's why I'm sitting here. Right?
That's
Gia?
accurate. The accent part, I don't know. But we're back.
We are back for part two
Part
of
two.
your story. The first one, I was mind blown. And thank you for sharing all of that with me and everyone that is listening or watching on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Just gotta take that segue, right?
The thing with her is like, you don't know her. Like, she doesn't express that much emotion. So I'm like, I sometimes, but you're doing good.
It was good. Thank you. Thank you for your feedback. I appreciate that. So let's just recap a little bit. You came from Cuba when you were 10 years old with your family in a RAFT. After 16 hours, you got to
Guantanamo Bay. It's a military American base. Actually, that's where all the terrorists right now are.
Really?
Yeah. All the terrorists in the world, they take him to Guantanamo base.
Wow. I did not know that. So after that, you were there for another 16 days because they do background checks to make sure you are a good person.
Of course. So good citizen.
Good citizen. I want to start this part of the story. How was the process? Like, did they ask you guys question or they just had a background check and then they'll say, all right, you are free and open the doors and then you go? Like, how does that work?
They do definitely ask you all your legal, obviously, name, age, where you lived and stuff like that. I don't know how it's from government to government, but I do know, like, if you ask for a visa for other countries, there's some type of system. So I guess we were plugging the system, and I guess due to that we were refuge of United States, Cuban government cannot refuse to give that information. So I do remember actually part of that interview, they asked us children like questions within the family just to make sure, because you also have to think that all this family that are coming along, they might even have internal issues, Some kids might be, going through some type of abuse. So this medical team, we're talking about not only medical, like medicine and health, but also psychologists, So they ask us, obviously, provoking questions. They ask, obviously, the men, I do remember saying, they asked me if we were part of any communist group or spy. They do ask that, obviously, to cover. And then whatever is it that they review, and I guess they figure it out that we were good citizen people for the United States. But they do ask questions to us children. How's your interaction with your parents, your father, your mom? So they take everybody individually and they interview them,
So for this 16 days, you were apart from your dad because you're with your mom. When was the time that they put you all together and say that you were free to go?
We did commingle with my father and my mom at eating times. So it's just sleeping times. You needed to be in separate camps, However, I heard stories and they laughed about it that they will be boyfriend and girlfriend. They'll disappear somewhere because it was 16 days. God knows. But yeah, we can commingle. It's just we could not sleep together, So the camping part, when you needed to go to sleep, the mothers, with their child, and the men used to be separated, I guess for any type of, fight or thing, you're dealing with people and issues and different backgrounds. So they keep it that way, that's safe. I guess that military part.
When was the time that they told you your family were free? You guys were all free to go.
They definitely told us in the process, probably within a week and a half, they let us know everything is good. then your flight is going to be this date. And it was like a military, kind of commercial airplane that it was just, from Guantanamo there was probably like an hour and a half. It wasn't that big of a journey. It was just, they told you your flights that day where you going to America. We have no idea what was next.
And then from there, you went to
Miami.
How was that from leaving there to landing in Miami? Like, did you guys have where to go?
No.
How did you all plan that?
Two different environments. So when the process and they started processing you in the base, right? Those other families that were with us that came in the journey, they have family here. The only people that didn't have family in the United States, it was my parents and me and my brother, the four of us. Everybody else had a cousin, had a brother, sister, parents in Miami that they were waiting for. So they asked us previously where we were heading, and obviously we were like, we have no idea. So they kind of prep us to the sense like, if you guys don't have nobody in Miami, the government takes care of you. But they were already giving my dad an offer to go to New Mexico, and then the government, will take care of you. They'll give you housing, obviously education, and they help you get back into your feet. Actually, education and even to my parents, it was, I don't know how it is right now, an amazing program for refugees. So it helped people get back, I guess, into the society. We're talking about two different environment, but we didn't have no idea. So we thought like, we're in the United States, we have freedom. So whatever they put in our path, listen, we survived 16 hours. We were not meant to live. So we were not afraid what was coming. The one thing that my parents do wanted is to stay in Miami due to the comfort zone that all those friends that we developed in there were the only people we knew. So we wanted to be close to them. And that's when that second part begins.
And you told me a story.
Mm-hmm. So you go to immigration. Mm-hmm. So everybody that comes from the base goes through immigration. So the process starts in La Base, in the military base, but it kind of finalized in Miami. Mm-hmm. So you're in the immigration, and who was taking care of the refugees in that time was the Catholic immigration for Cubans. So it was an organization that was protecting Cubans and helping them get back into their feet. So immigration, it was a Catholic department, and we were there while we were being processed. And that's when they give us the two options. We take you to New Mexico, or you stay here in Miami, but we need to find or in a company or a religious group, somebody that will take care of you guys. You guys just cannot be like that, right? Somebody has to make responsible for you guys, So it is a well-thought society rather than just having an immigrant not knowing. So they help you back to your feet. So they tell us in New Mexico and everything else is going to be taking care of you guys. So my dad says, I don't want to go over there. Obviously, English barrier, Miami's Miami. So for us Cuban, second home is Miami, right? We never end up speaking English, as you guys heard previous episode. So they told us that they were going to give us 24 hours to find that. Those people that came with us started reaching out and calling different pastors and organizations and the whole entire thing. We got there, I would say, like around 9 a.m. So we had breakfast, but it took like all day. It took like more than 12 hours. So in the middle of the day, obviously we were hungry. So while the process, and they made a few calls, we were from a religious group, and nobody wanted to take care of us. And people just washed their hands. So but my parents were trying to do the very best to stay in Miami regardless. They didn't know, so we didn't have family or anything. So at that point, me being 10 years old and my brother 4, we start asking Daddy, we're hungry, we're hungry. And it was already around, I would say, probably 5 to 6 p.m. They just give us a little snack, but not meal. We were hungry. They didn't think maybe that was going to be that long. So I remember my dad says, I'm going to go out there, and whoever I find after that door, I'm going to ask them for food. we're like, go daddy. Today's day, me being 39, I just can imagine. To my dad's surprise, he comes out and he finds an old childhood friend from Cuba.
What are the chances?
What are the chances and the odds, right? And he's like, Barbaro, oh my God, what are you doing here? I was like, we're being processed. We just got here from Guantanamo Bay. He's like, oh my God. And how's the family? He's like, right now the family's hungry. I need food. And he's like, don't worry. What do you need? Let's go. And he took us to our first experience here, which is Sedano. Sedano is like Publix, but for Hispanics, Sedano supermarket. And that was my first encounter with abundance. It was our first encounter with traffic and everything. For us, everything was like so beautiful. Like the first thing as a little girl, I always wanted to have an apple. And now that I don't want to eat an apple, now I want a mango or something more tropical. So when we go to the grocery and we see like 10 different apples and all freaking shiny, we're like, I mean, the feeling of that abundance is just undescribable. So he ordered some food for us. And he took it back to that place or that waiting area that we were on. And we ate. And all I wanted was that damn apple. Like, it was just so shiny. And now that I just wash it and I put all this vinegar to take all that, what is it called? Whatever they spray it with. Where then I'm like, what a perfect apple. That's what the things that we take for granted, that we forget. And it's, we always, and I always try to do with my children is to remind them where we went through. And sometimes you just not even want an apple because it doesn't look perfect. You don't want to. But I remember I wanted my apple. And he's like, pick whichever apple you want. And obviously I got the biggest and the juiciest. And I'm like, just like the movie goes. The last apple I had in my life, it was probably one time that came to the store, and it was like this big and it was like ugly as hell. And we ate, we got satisfied. And they said, well, Mr. Hernandez, we haven't gotten hold of anybody. We left messages, but we have until tomorrow to give you that window. If nobody answers for you guys have to go to New Mexico because somebody has to. We cannot just leave you like that. And obviously those people that came with us, their family had their hand full with their family. So we couldn't say, hey, can you take one more family, But my dad was so, and I see he's confident. He's like, I already survived the worst. He was confident that God was going to provide. My dad told me that as soon as he stepped in this country, the first thing that God put in his mind was, you left a country of need, but in this country, you're going to live by faith as well. And not only my father, my whole entire family and everything that been put in my path, everything's been by faith. It's me being certain of what I want and what God wants in my life. And he has always not only provide, he have succeed my expectation. That's why I serve the God that I do. So they said, we're going to take you to this hotel. And we're going to pick you up in the morning. So they took us there around 9 p.m. Right? They give us some little snacks here and there, but we already ate. They give us some snack. But you have to remember, 93, there was no cell phones. It was payphone. So they not even give us like 50 cents to make a call for emergency. So they took us to, those that are familiar with Miami, the 90s, Biscayne Boulevard. Biscayne Boulevard was a very hot area. It's a motel town, prostitution 101. So they took us to this thinkity ass motel that as soon as we walk in, like the rooms were open with women with their boobs out. Like, I guess they were selling themselves. And as soon as they saw the children were coming, they were like covering themselves. So my dad is like, oh, like, is this Vegas or something? So they took us into the room. They didn't know. And they said, we're going to pick you up tomorrow in the morning. You know, stay in your room. And this is another thing, and I spoke to you about. These are the things that once you live it, it just mark you for life. And remember what I told you, that God told my dad that he was going to live by faith, right? So that was the second test. The first test obviously was the food. So the second test is perfectly healthy girl. All of a sudden I start with 103 Fahrenheit fever. My dad doesn't have nobody to call, no medicine, no money. They just give us food to pass the night. And somebody was going to pick us up at 8 in the morning. My dad opened the room door and he said, devil, you're going to take that fever and you're going to leave this room, because who brought us to this country, it was God. Take all your symptoms and flee. And in 10 minutes, my fever was gone from scratch. And right there, then, my faith, it just went through the roof. I knew that anything that I can ask God, it will be fulfilled in my life if that's what He meant it. And that's what I've been till now, 39 years old. So we went to sleep in peace. Even though we were in such a heavy environment that you hear all the music outside and all this prostitution and the police and the ambulance, there was a lot of commotion outside that room. The first thing I felt was comfort. I had the most important thing in my life at that moment, which was my tower, which was my parents, my little brother, and I was not feeling bad anymore. I didn't have a fever. And we went to sleep, such an amazing sleep, that the next day we woke up hopeful and full of dreams again, not knowing what was the future was going to hold us. So they took us back to that same room again, waiting. They were making calls. Everybody was like doing their thing. They were calling because the Catholic immigration in Miami have all these organizations in Miami, which it's huge. And they were calling people. So around 2 p.m., this very older gentleman, he comes in and he's like, where are my children? And he was a pastor of a mega church in Miami, like huge church. And it was a different council that we were, because we used to be Assembly of God. Assembly of God, there was nowhere to be found. They didn't want nobody. And that council is the same Pentecostal belief in us, it's just a different council. And that gentleman came from a funeral. And he's like, I didn't answer earlier because I was in a funeral, but I'm here to pick up my children. We didn't know who this guy was. I not call him to today's day that he was our angel. He had a mega church. Like everybody that was going to that church were like somebody in Miami. Like we were the poor, humble little people. But he did what nobody have ever done for us. He took us to his father's house that passed away years. And it was an older house in Coconut Grove. It was from the 20s, like 1920s. And we did not pay rent for 2 years. And it was just an angel sent from heaven. My father quickly started in security, being a guard in a big building in Miami. And my mom started studying medical assistant. That's why I'm a strong believer of second chances and helping people and giving people chances, because somebody had that kindness to us, not knowing who we were. And he picked us up. And I remember he brought us clothes, he brought us food, and they did amazing with us. I mean, we were exposed to so much, things and abundance but my father quickly saved for his first car, and we getting reinstated into society, which is the hardest for an immigrant. My parents did many mistakes that they said, don't get credit cards, don't do this, or pay everything cash. We were just new in a new town, knew everything. That first 24 hours being here, just marked me for life.
This is the first time you talk about this part of your story.
Yes.
Because you have recorded before.
We never got to this part.
And you never got to this part.
No.
So firsthand.
Lucky her.
Yes, thank you. And all the listeners. And then you were there for, you said, 2 years. And first of all, like, we talked about this before, and you mentioned that a lot of people think that you came for money.
I wish that was true, guys.
So when you got here, how did you guys started a brand new life from scratch? How did your dad got the job, and how'd you guys go to school and start building a new life in America?
Well, we stayed in that house for 2 years without paying rent, so that helped my parents save money to pay, light here and there. So that helped them. And my mom quickly got into medical assistant. So it was like, medical assistant is like care for older people. And she started, my mom was so young when they got here. Like she was, if I was 10, we're 10 years. My mom was 28 when she got here. And I thought my mom was old. I'm older than her, but so she started, and I'm glad that they did that. The only thing is that the system in Miami, they didn't have to speak English, so they were super comfortable. So my dad, obviously, the gentleman helped him find a job because that church had so many, there were like 5,000 members. So obviously, somebody gave a job and opportunity to my dad. He started working at that time, minimum, he used to work in the at nights. So my dad would work at night, and then my mom would study in the morning. So they'll take, because then obviously I went to public school. All the whole entire thing. They learned my mom had to learn how to drive because she didn't know. So my dad was the first one that got the license, right? He learned how to do he got his license, then he drove. He bought his it was an Oldsmobile from 1983. And I tell you the story about the roach walking on me one time. It was in that car.
Go ahead, tell me the story again.
The story was, that's why I hate roaches. The car was so freaking old. So one time we're going to church, and I have this beautiful like white dress, and I just feel something I'm like, I am itchy. Oh my God, I'm itchy. So when I opened my dress, there's this freaking roach walking on me. So I'm like, ah. So you know how it was. I was like 10, and it was the most disgusting thing. So, they just started working. So they went little by little, baby steps, Then he got his first car. Then my mom went to school. Then my mom got her license. Then she started, she had to drive. Then I was my mom human GPS, because back then there was no GPS. But the easy thing in Miami is that the streets are by numbers. So northwest, southwest, northeast. So then it's easy to find addresses. So I was my mom. Okay, mom, 2 blocks, 3 blocks. I was like her human GPS, literally. So my dad, I remember we used to go to the back and sit down in the car, and he would teach her how to drive. Then she passed the license. But the main thing was already solved, that we were legally in this country. And I feel for my immigrant brothers and sisters that they don't have it as easy as us Cuban back then. Now Cubans don't have it as easy, because now they have to go to different, and they come as really, really illegal. But the change still so drastically, from a country that you don't have bills, but here you have to live for bills, So it takes a little bit, as them listening and friends here and there. So they got back up, I would say, in a year. In that house, those 2 years without paying rent helped them a lot, even though the house was not a livable status. I remember one really bad storm. The house had 2 floors. The second floor was completely blocked. It was full of mold. And one night, our second floor dropped on my parents' bedroom. But we didn't, it was a house that the gentleman gave us to live. And, We did the best that we can do. We put some, nylon and whatever it was. So it was not a livable house, but we were there for 2 years because it was, el techo, how we say in Spanish, that he gave us, and we were very grateful.
Yeah.
I remember, I would think the last 3 or 4 months, my dad started paying him something because he felt like he needed, even though that gentleman didn't need the money, it was a gratitude. And that gentleman passed many years ago. And I wish I would have a chance to tell him thank you, because I met him as a girl.
Mhm.
But then as we moved into other states, we lost contact because he passed away in the family. But they have no idea what they did for me and my family.
When was the time that you came to Orlando?
So definitely they get back in their feet. They start paying rent. Then we go to a cheaper, because Coconut Grove, even though the house was not livable, it was a very high end.
Is it like I'm not really familiar, but
Uh-huh.
is it the area in Miami that is just like all Cubans?
No, that's Little Havana. It was close from there,
Okay.
but no. Coconut Grove is like a little bougie area now.
Got it.
Right now, everybody like Coconut Grove is like, ooh. But the house was so old, and he had the house for so many years there. Actually, I remember he used to rent these people from Nicaragua, and they became really good friends of us. And they had an older daughter. She was like probably 3 years older than me. And I was like, she became my little model, that lady. So those people help us
Mhm.
to kind of like, hey, do this, do that. So in the same property, there was two homes, one that they were renting and the one that was not livable. I mean, semi-livable, that we were living in. So those people kind of help us. And in Miami, whether you're new or not, it's a very selfless, like you help each other in your own kind. That's the one thing that I love about my people, that again, from everything, there's everything, but Cubans help each other because we know what we came from and that we don't have that here. So it's a duty that we have to each other. It's that Cuban code that we understand each other. So obviously Miami, as expensive as it was, my parents were working, but they were not being able to pay the rent. It was just, they were always so, like they couldn't pay that. So somebody told them, hey, uh, Rochelle, Illinois, which I always said Chicago with correction. It was a small town, which was, 2 hours from Chicago. Just nobody knows what Rochelle is. So some Cubans were there. A Cuban of a Cuban of a Cuban. They say, hey, there's a factory there. And in Miami at that time, they were paying like $5-6 an hour. This factory was paying $12 an hour. Like in 96, 97, that's a lot of money. But it was because it was this small of a town. And it was a pork factory, and my parents worked their behind off. So they decided to go to Illinois. Let's go to Illinois. Well, Illinois rent was like a third of what Miami was, like cheap as hell, but it's because they needed labor, So there was only one factory. I remember town had only one Walmart. So we went one spring and we stayed there. Little that we know that the winter there are brutal, like
Yeah.
brutal. So my parents work in this factory, 12-hour shift, guys. I remember that they'll leave everything ready for me and my brother, and they would come back at midnight. So I was responsible with my brother for many things. So at that time, 5 years passed in Miami. So we lived 5 years in Miami, and then when we went over there, I was 14, 15 already. So I was already bigger. So, I will go to the bus stop. I will go to my, at that time, middle school, high school, and my brother. So then when I come home, I will cook for my brother. And, there's a story that you heard that I almost burned the kitchen one time. And that's when my parents said no. That year, my parents saved $15,000. And they're like, see you, Illinois. Well, I don't want Illinois and I don't want Miami. What is the midpoint? So my father, amazing. I call him my tío, but he's not really blood related, just because we have the same last name. But that's the one that built my dad RAFT with, Tony Hernandez. So he moved to Orlando, and he was saying, listen, Orlando is not like Miami. Disney's here. And come, we can get you a job. We can get you a thing, and you guys would love it. Well, Disney's Disney. We came with Disney. It was like, oh my God, it's hot. Perfect. we're not going back. So my mom started working in Disney as a housekeeping. And then my dad started working with my uncle, mechanic. And then soon enough, he bought a truck and he got into the truck. And that's how they raised me. Very humble family, very eager, not afraid to work. That's one thing, my parents and my mom, very, very, work ethic. And then they bought their first house and I went to college. I know where you're trying to get me. I know where you're trying to take me. And then I did my last 2 year college, senior, not senior. I left sophomore over there. Then I came junior and senior, and I graduated from the best, amazing high school in town, which is Oak Ridge High School. And my husband is probably going to make fun of me. Oak Ridge is, doesn't have the best reputation, but that's what we could afford. And I graduated from Oak Ridge. And a lot of people was like, you graduated from Oak Ridge? Yes, class of 2001.
Why? What is it about?
It's not in the best part of town.
Oh, okay.
But there was like a Cuban colony there. Like we always following Cubans, Cubans follow Cubans.
Just like Brazilians.
Yes. Follow our kind.
Yes.
And I graduated from college and my parents bought a house. So, they saved some money, because all they did in that town was work for a whole year. So there was nothing else to spend the money. So I remember we went back to Cuba that same summer as visiting. So we went to Cuba. We saw the family that we didn't see our family for 6 years. It was such an amazing trip to see everything again. And then we came back to Orlando and we stay here and we continue working, studying, and meeting the love of my life.
Yeah, we're definitely going together. By the way,
not today.
No.
Oh,
wow.
No? ¿Por qué no? You heard it? Oh, my God.
I got an accent in Spanish.
Part 3?
Part 3. No, I think...
our sound guy here, I see him like...
He's doing everything today. But you said, oh, I know where you want to get.
I know where you're
Which, by the way...
What, you wrote a letter?
No, a letter.
I mean, the destination.
The destination. No. No, because you said I know where you're gonna get, and I want to explain why you say that.
Mm-hmm. Guess why?
Guess why?
Why?
Because every single time I'm talking with her, she's like, are you interviewing me? So I cannot speak to her anymore because she's always thinking I'm interviewing
I'm already
her.
being traumatized with her. She always has something calculador in her mind. She's always calculating something. I'm like, anytime she's going to finish the story and she continue, I'm like, okay.
The other day I tried finding out what was her favorite sport, something like that.
It took a whole entire, like half an hour. And I'm like, that's all you want to know? You should have just asked me.
Oh, Gea. No, but so you said love of your life, which we all know it's Jeremy, the 200%.
Mr. 200%.
Brooker in Orlando.
In town.
But you guys met in church and you have been together for 19, 20 years.
Yeah, not that
married.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's interesting to talk about this because I think it nowadays not a lot like that.
Mm-hmm. There's a few I know. Just kidding.
Maybe. But you guys met in church. He was a little different than what you expected.
Different? That's why they call it special.
Special.
Yeah, Jeremy was not your typical man that I would think.
So how this relationship came about?
Damn, you're really going all the way.
I am. I wanna tell your entire story, Gea.
Okay.
You are a role model for so many people.
Wow. I feel really honored. Thank you.
You're very
We've never
welcome.
gone this back. I mean, this far. Go ahead.
I mean, Trust me, if we can sit down and talk for hours and hours.
But now you see why?
And hours.
I have so many. Not because I'm old. I just have experience.
You're just a very experienced person. But yes, how was this meeting Jeremy and creating this relationship that now it's for so many years you have been married and with 2 kids?
We're reading like part 4 and 5, right? Wow. 1, 2. Yeah, my life. That's nice. You're helping me visualize my life by part.
You're welcome. I'm painting the picture.
Yes. She's getting me ready for that book. For that Netflix documentary. Hey, if you want, I'm off for the challenge.
The only requirement is that I'm part of it.
Oh, I know. She
and
made
our
me
sound
sign.
engineer.
Yeah, our sound engineer. Unless God call him, to heaven. But if not, I'm stuck with the both of them. So, Jeremy, it's funny because this side of my life, you guys have heard parts, but have never, nobody have given me the opportunity or the chance or the time to talk about it because it's very intensive, right? Thank you, Lele, because it does bring things into perspective. And once you see your life in a whole, things change and you see how blessed we truly are. So, as you see, 10 years old, going through all those transitions. So we go to Orlando, fantasy world. We're like, this thing. My mom used to get tickets, and man, back then it was the bomb. They were like freaking like $30 tickets, $20, not like now. So we were going to Disney all the time. My mom used to get also because she used to be a housekeeper in the hotel. So I go to high school. And in the last year of high school, I meet Jeremy, and because we go to this new church, so I'm the new girl, curly hair, super curly hair, a lot of hair, and I don't know. I guess he, I'm sorry, I don't want to bring him down. It was like the black ducky, like he was the rocker. I don't know why. I mean, it was so interesting. But to me, I just thought he was, oh my God, he was, as you see, Jeremy, how he is, super social. He, as soon as I got to the church, I think he was one of the first person that introduced himself. Hi, what's your name? Heangnis, Giannis, Jeannie's. I'm Jeremy. Nice to meet you. I'm like, oh, hi. And he was part of the music in church. He used to say that I used to look at him. The freaking guy will be looking at me because I was like the freshest meat. He said he fought a couple. He's like, hey, I saw her first. But due to his personality, truly, his salesmanship, that's what he always told you guys. My wife always saying that she's telling me, he actually did, he just how he is. He would not be that typical guy that I would look into because he was a rocker. So the first thing that I get, the first challenge, my mom goes, don't get close to that guy. Oh my God, he looks like a demon. And I'm like, oh my God. Jeremy has Jankos.
Poor Jeremy.
He had like dog chain. And then his hair was so black because Jeremy's hair naturally is black. So he looks a little gothic, And then he's in church playing guitar because at that time he was part of the rock band. I guess it was the rock thing. So tell Gia that. Now I start looking at the kid. Like, he will be an amazing best friend. Because Jeremy was so social. He was just, very easy to be talking to. And all of a sudden, the one thing that I will tell you that got my attention, it was that Jeremy was not afraid of my parents, and he approached my parents. And he said, hey, nice to meet you. Whatever you need in church, I'm here for you guys. And to me, whoever acknowledged my parents and whoever, because remember, the people that brought me here, the ones that been with me in thick and thin, I actually remember, and I'm sorry, I don't know if he's listening to this story. Actually, he's a fan of us and he's always listening to us. One of my ex-boyfriends. He's a fan of Jeremy too. Really nice guy.
Yeah.
He was back in Rochelle, Illinois. My first boyfriend. Very nice guy. Um, and I care for him and everything. It was like my first love. But my parents said, Gia, we're not gonna be here forever. And we might be moving. So I just don't want you to get so deep. And my dad told me to break up with the guy, and I did. Sorry, Michael. And I told him the thing that I tell everybody, it's not you, it's me.
Cliche.
But my dad told me to do it, and I did it. That much I believe in my parents. I know if they tell me to the end of the world, I'll go for them in the end of the world. And I want you guys to understand it was because of what they did. Like every comforting moment, every struggle that I went through as a little girl, the people next to me were my parents. I didn't have my grandparents. It was my parents in the darkest moment that I faced. So my dad said that was a law. So I go to church, I see the rocker with the guitar. And I'm like, oh God. If my my parents are gonna, this one. Psst. But I remember he started like talking to me, and I had my prom. I wanted to invite him to prom, but I'm like, Gia, stay in your lane. Don't, your parents probably gonna say something. I do remember that due to my past experience, I didn't want to get attached to nobody just because of what I saw that Jeremy looked. And I'm like, I don't think they're going to approve. But there was something in him, like his approachability, and he's kind and very social, And I love that about my husband, that doesn't matter where I take him. Jeremy's such a light and such a kind person. I saw his heart. I remember that we started talking, and it was my birthday was approaching, and he gave me a gift, and I'm like, I cannot accept this. Like, why am I going to tell my mom what I'm going to do with this shirt? Again, he got me a shirt from Hot Topic. It was like a rocker store. I still remember that shirt. We had a common friend in church. So what we used to do, we used to go to lunch and dinner, and I used to go with my friend, and it was like the three of us. So obviously there was a connection. There was an interest. I love his personality. As you see, as he smile, he has a beautiful smile, and I loved everything about him. I'm into hands. I love his hands. I was like, oh. So little but I know I was not looking for him, but I started falling in love for him. And I remember we started talking on the phone. So Jeremy was in college already. So Jeremy, it's a year older. For those of you that are saying that I'm older, guess what? Jeremy's older.
Oh yeah, we had that on TikTok.
Hater. So I was finishing high school, and Jeremy was first year of college, and he was going, as you guys know, for journalism. So we used to be in the phone for such a long time. Back in the day, like the block phone, we're like, yes, oh my God. But then at nighttime, when my parents would be sleeping, we'd be on the landline. One time, my mom picked up the phone. Who's this? Jeremy phone dropped. And I said, that's it. I'm done. And I remember back then there was beepers. So I used to have my beeper, and I used to work at Toys R Us. It was my first job. I always wanted more things, as you guys see, visionary. And I was 16 and when I first started working. So I was 2 years working. So I always wanted to make my money and make what I wanted it. So Jeremy used to beeper me and my beeper. Call me. Who remembers that?
I don't, Gia. Sorry, I wasn't born back then.
It was the numbers and call me, whatever it was. So then he used to have a cell phone, but I didn't. So he told me, call me. I'll be calling him, blah, blah, blah. So he used to visit me at work. So we we were dating secretly since my birthday, April, until May is when he asked me officially. So my mom
next year.
No, the same year.
So you're dating since April,
and in May we became official.
Like boyfriend and girlfriend.
Boyfriend and girlfriend.
Got it.
So in that month, so no, we started kind of like March here and there, and we went to my birthday, blah, blah, blah. March, my birthday's in April. So when my mom gets the call, I send me a message. I'm like, I'm sorry, but the only way this relationship is going to be forward if it's approved by my parents. I knew right there then. I did I challenged God and I said, I don't want my heart to be broken, but if he's the one that you want to marry me, that's the exact word. If this is the man that you want me to marry, my mom is going to fall in love with him because right now she hates him. I remember me and my mom got into a fight one time before even I was interested in Jeremy. Stop hanging out with that guy because he will approach me because all the cute guys are not get close to you. And I remember I got out of my mom's car and I started walking like a maniac. And due to her doing that, that's when I started like, looking at Jeremy. So I was having these feelings for this guy that my mom was saying, he doesn't look what you need to. But I always knew that I want what God wanted for me and there's no way to know. So I did that challenge and I said, if Jeremy is the man that you want for me, make my parents fall in love with him and change their mind. Guess what?
They love Jeremy.
Oh, now they love him. But that was in 24 hours, my mom changed her mind. And it was drastically from, who is this? If you don't say your name and you come to the house, I don't want to hear you. So she kind of thought it was him, but she didn't know. So then I told him, yeah, mommy, it's that guy. I mean, we're being talking. Well, talk to your dad about it. But my mom really was a decision maker. Well, guess what? My dad was on his truck. He was, driving that day. And I was like, forget it. It's not going to go nowhere. I didn't call Jeremy or anything. I'm like, I'm not going to pursue. If my parents say no, it's no. To me, if my parents said no, I know. But then I knew that they don't know the future. So then that's when I challenged God. So my mom got us that night before the morning comes. And in the afternoon, all of a sudden I'm minding my own business. And I remember my parents having a fight in the morning. And she's like, oh, Gia was in the phone, blah, blah, blah. He's like, listen, stop. And my dad, actually, I asked him one time, he's like, I don't know where that came from, Gia. I just felt him. And my dad says, you don't know if that's the man that God wants for her. So maybe that's the guy that she probably is going to marry. So leave it to God and stop seeing things outside. I was in the morning. I'm like, it's making it even worse. In the afternoon, I'm in my room and my mom said, hey, when is Jeremy coming? What? The guy that you said that is a demon? And yeah. I called Jeremy immediately. My mom wants you to come to the house. And Jeremy, one thing he went, he probably took 2 freaking hours. He came late, like always. And he got there. And that night, I was just like in awe. I would look at my mom and I would look at my parents. My dad was always more lenient. He was more toned down. My mom was like the firecracker. But my dad did always what my mom said. And Jeremy got there. They cooked for him. And Jeremy they had an amazing night. And Jeremy left that day super late. And I'm like, oh, crap. That was the first day. Then Jeremy asked, when can I come back? Oh, whenever you want to.
Wow.
Boy. I told him, listen, don't come tomorrow. Like, let's give it here and there. The thing is, like, that's how we started, like a whole entire week or 2. And then I told Jeremy one time, listen, you have not asked me to be your girlfriend.
The ultimatum.
And we've been hanging out like this. And to me, that was the challenge that I knew. Like, it was such a miracle. In 24 hours, my mom's perspective changed. And that had to be God, that he worked on her to the point that now my parents love Jeremy more than me, But that was the challenge I did. That's why in that previous relationship, when my dad said, time to pick up, girl, time to pick up, I had to do it because to me, I understood that my parents knew what's best and my timing had to do within them. They will guide them. So that's why I told God, if he's the one for me, you're gonna put it in their heart. You're gonna change my mom perspective, you know. And that's exactly what happened. And now me talking about it, I never realized it that I put that challenge in God. So that was to me that sign that that was the man that was meant to spend the rest of my life with.
There's so much more to share.
Another time.
And we will get to it eventually, and with part 3, 4, 5, and
We're reading part 5, I think.
no, yeah, but like of the story, but of the podcast, there's so many other parts that I would love to talk with you about. I mean, I think, Gia, I have no words to talk about like your story, and like to listen to everything. It's very, very special. And I have one more question that, after looking back and seeing the previous video that we recorded and this one up to your marriage with Jeremy, I have this question that I really want to know. And
Oh.
oh.
Bring it on.
How do you feel right now when you look back to your story from leaving that 10-year-old Gia, leaving Cuba, a completely different life, than coming to America? I want to know what comes to your head. What feelings do you have? How do you feel?
That there's two different type of Gia. There is the Gia before the RAFT, and there's a Gia after. I've always, believe it or not, I've always been shy. Back then, I was a very timid little girl. My mom didn't let me play outside. She had me very sheltered, and even though in my teenage years, she still sheltered me, and I give her thanks now that I have a daughter. Now I understand it, and she told me one day, you understand? Yes, I completely understand, Mom. But that life experience opened me to my destiny. But the most impacting thing was exposing me to see God vividly hand in my life. And a lot of time I ask, why me? What is it that I have? What is it that you see in me that I went through those things for something? And that's why I'm still on the journey to impact more people, because I understand there is more to impact to those. And I think is being fearless and reckless. You know, like I get moments that I'm weak and I'm tired and here and there. But the one thing that exposed me to is to keep pushing no matter what. That as long as you push, you always discover more. That as much as you knock at the door, an answer will come, whether it's positive or negative. It was always to make me the woman and that powerhouse that I am. That I would never thought that I had that opportunity or I had it in me. But destiny, God brought me through this journey, not for me, but to impact those that sometimes think that challenges in life is everything. And to me, challenges was the beginning of that beautiful diamond that is still in the process. That there was a moment in my life that I didn't know what the purpose is. But sitting down in this platform and opening myself, when I started recording myself and seeing what I was saying, I never realized the impact that goes beyond. So if I can give that person that second chance, somebody that probably thought that it was the end of their life, it was not worth living for. Life is beautiful, and challenges and pain, it's even more worth it. Because a victory without a fight is not a victory. It has to hurt and it has to make you uncomfortable, like Migdalia said, in order for you to grow. And that success was never inevitable. It was just to me to see what high ceiling I couldn't reach. And it was, everything has been by faith and trust.
Well said. You said about impacting others, and firsthand, you have impacted my life. And I'm gonna get emotional. No,
You see how fake? I don't believe her.
no, it's true though. You have impact, and I know you impact so many other people around you, and you're such a huge role model for everyone. And I see you. We always joke that I see you as my grandma, but it's not. It's. I just see you as truly like a role model, and I admire you so much. And I could not be happier to first work with you and have this project also with you, and just to know that I can count with you too. And I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity to tell your story to me. And I'm very, very happy that I have you in my life, and I'm very, very thankful. And I can say that you have impacted my life so much this year, and I know you impact so many other lives. So thank you for sharing.
You're welcome.
Do not cry, because I'm gonna cry.
It's okay to cry.
It's okay to cry. But it's true. And you know, I look forward to everything that we are building together, and all the other projects. And I just want to say thank you for everything you do. And yeah, I guess I can say now. No, I'm not gonna say it. You're my abuela still. I was going to say she's like my big sister, but
she said it. Pie, where's my pie? Her father's my actually, I have two fathers now. Her father is my Brazilian father, so I'm always messing with her that I'm the favorite for her father.
Yeah, right. But yes, so thank you for having me. Thank you for going on this project journey and believing in me and our amazing sound engineer in the back.
You already left.
He's tired. Yeah, I just want to say thank you. And
I'm a good answer. I give good answer, you see.
You are.
No, thank you, Leticia. Even though I'm not perfect. I've always tried to help others, and it has not been the most successful way. I've always had that little girl in me, and that little girl in me has always wanted it. Be grateful for what's given to me. So I'm always looking for opportunities to impact somebody else. And there was something in you, even though you were very timid, which we both are. I mean, we're always like kidding, like it's insane. We're so both are very competitive, but I saw it as soon as I talked to you. You were like a little sponge, you know, and I saw your soul. Don't ask me why. I saw it, and again, we don't know where our path, and I know only great from here, but I'm glad that my little voice did not. I listened to it, because due to things that happen in our life, we tend to shut it down because we don't want to get hurt. Listen, I want to get hurt 100 times. If it's worth for that person, if it's worth it for you, I'm willing to be hurt 100 times. All we need is one quality. That person that you can change their life, or just listen to me. And to me, that's priceless.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Man, she did not cry, you see? She made me cry, and I was trying to make her cry even harder.
Gia, I already cry with you a lot. You have no idea how much I cry when we talk.
Especially when she has a cup of wine on her.
All right.
But thank you, Letty.
I
means the world.
I appreciate you and Jeremy and the entire team. And we're going to have a lot of other topics.
I love it.
Right? So
will there be another part, like Jeremy and beyond?
Oh yeah, part three. What? Yeah, of course. But I think your story, it's incredible and it needs to be heard. And I always wanted to tell your story. I always express that to you. So it's really nice. So thank you, Gea, for having me on your show, being the interviewer this time.
You see, I love it. Thank you, Letty.
Thank you. Bye.
See you next time.